A note before we begin. Today's program contains topics which may be emotionally challenging, including a discussion of violence against women and sexual assault. We focus on the survivor's experience and urge you to know that if you have experienced trauma related to sexual violence, that you are not alone. We will share links to resources in the program notes of this episode. Today, on Bearing Scars, her voice is familiar to generations.
What's the matter, big brother? Nothing.
For generations of children and families worldwide, Hilary Momberger welcomed the holidays as Charlie Brown's little sister Sally.
I went down to buy a turkey tree, and all they have are things for Christmas.
When Hilary Momberger could no longer portray Charlie Brown's little sister Sally, she had to find out who she really was. And in typical Hollywood fashion, the script is all too familiar.
I thought it was all about perform, fail, die. That was my life. That's what I thought it was about.
The voice who welcomed our holidays for years would spend her holidays buying drugs, sacrificing her body, avoiding jail, and attempting suicide.
Found drugs and alcohol, and I started stealing cars. I was getting arrested. I turned 15 in juvenile hall. And I sold pots and pans on the on-ramp of the 91 freeway at Atlanta and Artesia. And I lived on the streets, and I decided to kill myself. I just wanted to die.
Now, after years of silence and quiet despair, Hilary has again found her voice.
I started feeling safe. And as a result of feeling safe, I was able to get back into my community, which I felt at home at, which was the film industry. You know, no matter where you've been or what you've done, you can have a new experience. And Will Ferrell used to scream my name, Momberger!
Inside and out, everyone you know has got them. Your mom and dad and all your friends. Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Today's episode of Bearing Scars is a little different in that you already know our guest, or you think you do. Hilary Momberger is, of course, the timeless voice of happier times, and every year we welcome her into our homes. Today, we're going to listen to that timeless voice one more time, but in a different vein, on Bearing Scars. Hilary, welcome to Bearing Scars. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Good morning. How about that?
This is going to be and for those of you listening in the afternoon, we're going to start again and say good afternoon. And those of you listening in the evening, good evening.
And good evening, good afternoon. Hello.
So we start every single episode with a very simple question that is such an odd one to ask you. But we're still going to stay consistent with our theme, still ask the question, Hilary Momberger Powers, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be? I wanted to be Carol Burnett or Barbara Streisand. They could sing and they were so funny. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to laugh. That's all I wanted to do is be funny.
Is this before you were Sally or while you were going through the
only when I was a kid, because I remember my mother laughing at this woman who is Carol Burnett. And I thought, oh my God, this is how to make mom happy. Mm-hmm. So I was already ingrained and I was screwed from the beginning.
If this makes mom happy,
really yeah. Did it make mom happy? Then I can be happy.
I get it. And if you're making other people happy, then you're making other people smile. And so you get to play Sally. You go as a 5-year-old to audition to. Were you auditioning to be Sally, or were you just auditioning to do something within the field?
It was my first audition. Mm-hmm. It was the first one I went to. And it sounds like it's really exciting and lucky, but I'm 5 years old. I have no idea what we're doing. Mm-hmm. My mother took us down I lived in Los Angeles, and I had two sisters and a brother at the time. We eventually had 7, but at this time we had 4. My mother takes us down and we get an agent immediately, and they say, can you run over down the street and go meet with this producer? They need a cartoon character. And my mom was like, yeah, we'll take her down. So I went to my first audition where I met Bill Melendez and Charles Schultz, and I had no idea who they are. All I know is I got candy. That was how they got me in. Mm-hmm. It was like, and it wasn't like I auditioned. They wanted to see what kind of temperament I had as a kid.
Nice.
And I was a happy kid. I was just like, I love talking to strangers, something I still love doing. I love meeting people. And I just had a conversation, and I got booked because I could have a conversation, and that was it.
And how was the experience?
Back in the day, now you go in or you can record from your home or in your closet or if you have a sound stage. But, and I was a kid, so I could only go in for so much time. Mm-hmm. So they would bring each child in separately. So we never really met one another. We would cross each other in the hall, and I'd go, oh, that's Linus, mm-hmm. Or he'd say, there's Peppermint Patty or Lucy. And, but we never really met except, when we did the singing for the Thanksgiving, mm-hmm. and then we did another for Snoopy Come Home. We all got to sing together when we did the movie for that. But I would go, and Charles Schultz or Bill Melendez would tell me what to say. Mm-hmm. And they would say, would you say this line? And I would say it. And they go, okay, can you do it more happy? Sure. So I learned how to take direction really well as a kid. And so I would go in, and right after school, or I would leave school for an hour, and then I would come back maybe 2 days later, because they would do it in increments.
Okay.
Instead of at one full swoop, and then you're done. So.
Well, there had to be, I'm assuming, and I don't know about in the late 60s, late 60s, early 70s, there had to be some sort of thing that said, we can only keep Hilary here for an hour at a time or 2 hours at a time, right?
Yes. Yeah, the kids, you had those really tight kid laws. Now you can buy the teacher off on set, but that's a sidebar. I see it all the time. Mm-hmm. But so before they were very strict, and you can only work so many hours. And then you would have to go to school, which was, you feel like drawing. I'm a really great artist. Mm-hmm. I learned how to draw when I was a kid. And so, you would go in and you would go to school and you would work a little bit. And there was only I think you could work 6 hours a day. That's in between, school. And when you're a kid, at least my mother used to say, stop fidgeting, because I think I had ADD. Now we have names for it. Before it was just before I smack you, stop moving.
You were just a hyper kid.
I was totally hyper.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What a great excuse to leave school for half of the day. What elementary school did you go to? You were in LA, right?
I was in LA. I went to Wilbur Elementary School.
Any other folks in your elementary class that we may know of, or your middle school classes that we may know of?
Well, it was funny because the girl who we lived down the street from the girl in the Brady Bunch, and we used to go on auditions, and she got the part, and my mother was livid. Like she would.
So you could have been either Cindy Brady or Jan Brady or Marsha Brady, which I was going to be the Cindy. I was the baby, because I had 2 older sisters. Mm-hmm. So there was the 3 of us, and we got stuck in traffic and we missed our callback. Oh, wow.
So that was it was hell on wheels.
That would have changed the entire dynamic of the show if.
Oh, I don't know where it might, I might be dead if it would have happened. So I think everything happens for a reason.
Yep. And you're living a lovely life now that we're going to talk about in a little bit, how good your life is now. But let's talk more about how amazing your life was as a child when it comes to professionally. What other acting roles did you have?
Well, I started out doing Sally, so you also go in auditions, and there was 4 channels when I was a kid. I'm in the older section, so you would only have like so many commercials, and I get booking commercials. So I was like, Tiny Tears. I did doll voices for Mattel, Hi Daddy, Baby Beans. I did Skittle commercials. I did, Wrigley Spearmint Gun, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Scholl's, car commercials. So I was always on TV. And I guess kids today, they all want to be famous. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to be known. I wanted just to be a kid. I was just wanted to be among everybody else. So when I would go to school, I would have to be taken out of class, and I didn't like that. But, the disruption where you're in school and then all of a sudden you're pulled out. So you got isolated as the special one, but I didn't want to be special. I just wanted to be a kid and hang out with everybody else. So I would leave school and I would go to auditions. And
yeah, your desire to kind of be in the background, do you think did you like being a voice actor more because you were a little bit more anonymous in the background versus on the screen always having to physically smile, physically make yourself up and all that stuff?
Absolutely. My mother used to say, smile, look cute, and do not show your emotions. They're not profitable. That was her favorite thing. So I'm like, okay, don't show my emotions. So I learned how to smile all the time. Everything was, how you doing? Great. Everything's great. I'm dying inside. But I can't let anybody know that because I have to be on all the time. And so I did doll commercials and all these little specials, and it was fun because when I went to set, I got candy. I mean, any kid wants candy, so I didn't mind that, and I got to see how other people interact with each other because when you're with my family, there was such a weird dynamic going on. Everybody, was very loud. We could have been Italian because we were loud and screaming, and there was always some drama going on.
7 kids.
And then, and then when you're on set, it was a controlled chaos. So it was interesting watching it, and it's no wonder I ended up spending my whole career doing that because it became home.
And how did it feel to be part of that family, not your family?
It was, like I said, I felt like I was treated like a human being. They didn't expect a lot from me. I didn't have to perform. I just had to. He would say, would you say this line? And I'd say it. He'd say, okay, now what if you were saying it and you were in a hurry? I go, oh, and of course I loved the interaction. They were so nice. Charles Schultz was such a nice, consistent man. He would just sit and look at you. And it was, you felt admired without feeling weird about it. Like he would just look at you. It was almost like he would study the inflections. And it's funny because I see these memes about the characteristic of Sally, always kind of frustrated, who cares, judging, all that. And I'm like, God, he really got my personality. Like, how did he know?
That's how you got the role. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bill Melendez, he had this mustache, this black mustache. And I used to sit on his lap. It was appropriate. No Me Too, guys. Don't freak out. It was really bad. And I would play with his mustache. I would twist it because I'd never seen a man with a mustache. And he was Latin. So he had this accent. And I just thought he was a cartoon character.
Right. Exotic. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very interesting. But so I didn't really understand when we had the first premiere, the Thanksgiving special, I remember wishing that my dad would get home because I wanted to make my dad very happy and proud of me. And all the kids, we sat around our black and white television because it was kind of black and white back then. I think we may have just started getting color TV.
And we're talking the year of like 1968, I think, right? Is when the first.
Yes. There was kind of, I think in our living room it was an off colored TV. It wasn't like Technicolor. So we were sitting around, and my brother and my sisters, of course, were making fun of me. You know, you're not real. You're
awesome.
in character. So when we watched the show, there was a part of me that no one knew it was me, and it was kind of a secret because that's not showing your face. And when it was done, my mother just said, "All right, now go to bed." And I felt like, well, that was what happened to the crescendo? It wasn't. So that kind of set up the whole dynamic of me trying to be this perfect child, trying to, act my way into your heart. And that was kind of what I started getting into. But the whole sitting around and your brothers and sisters making fun of you and calling you not real kind of really put an impression in me. It's like, I don't really exist.
Right.
Like that's, so it was very interesting.
When you talk to other former child stars, do you find they have sort of the same experience of performing and not being themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting when I still work on sets sometimes because I still do commercials, and I've been in a couple movies this last year, and I see these kids on set, and when I see mothers, like recently I saw a mother who was so into her kid doing this, and my heart hurt because a lot of us that were child actors, a lot of it came from the parents wanting they truly believe that their kid wanted to be an actor, but it's really a kid just likes making believe. Like when you were a boy, you used to say cowboys and Indians. I'm an Indian. I'm a cowboy. I'm going to get on top of the hill, and I'm the king of the king of the hill. And it's the art of creativity, make believing that I think kids really, really desire.
And so for 7 years, off and on, you're Sally. You're having this grand ride on screen in front of other people. You've mentioned a couple of times about your home life and how that during that 7 years wasn't as happy as what people saw on screen. Or tell us a little bit about the home life that you had as a child actor.
Well, on the outside we look really great because we had all these kids all look the same. It's blue eyes and the curly hair and the blonde, good looking family. My parents had good looking kids. So we look like the Kennedys, and, you get judged because you think your life is perfect because in people's mind, you must have a great life. And it was completely opposite. My parents, my neighbors weren't allowed to come over because there was always screaming and yelling. So from the outside, we looked like all put together. But I used to call it the House of Horrors. There was a lot of alcoholism. My mother was raised in New York City, and she was an elite. Her father was the assistant district attorney of New York City. He ran the Senate, and she was an only child. And she went to Barnard and was the valedictorian and voted the most beautiful and was a
princess on her way to becoming a queen.
Oh, totally. Oh my God. She was really beautiful, pretty crazy, went together with her for sure. And my dad met her at a function in New York because my father went to West Point, and he was just a simple guy who won a scholarship, and he was really smart. He was a Mensa, and so was my mother. And so they met each other, and they drank. That was alcohol. They met through drinking. And so they, that explosion, they had this marriage, and my mother didn't really love him, but it was the right thing to do because my grandfather said, you're not going to be an actor. You're not going to be a model. You're going to be a mother or a school teacher. Because in the 40s, that's like what you were supposed to do.
Right.
So my mother resentfully became that. And then when we moved to Los Angeles, when I was 3, she said, I have an idea. I'm going to make you kids famous, and I'm going to feel it. And she used to say, you're nothing if it wasn't for me. Like, you are something because of me.
Wow.
And those formative years from 5 to 12 are, those are my growing years. Those are the years that I take on all my fears. I start building a character, a personality based on how the world perceives me.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am being placed in a bubble where I'm told not to share my feelings and smile all the time and be good. I don't even know who I am. But the world perceives it like, oh my God, she has such great, pretty brothers and sisters. Everything's so great. They must have they have horses, they have stuff. Because my mother was a big more,
mm-hmm.
being an alcoholic and a narcissist. Nothing was ever enough. So the more commercials I made, the more money I made, it was like, well, you could have made more. They made more. So I was always being compared to how much this kid made and that kid made. And I don't even know what money is. All I know is be good, make mommy happy, you can stay alive. Yeah. That's all I know.
Did your brothers and sisters end up in doing acting?
My brother was a model. My brother who passed away, he passed away from AIDS in 94, I think it was. But he was a model. He was really handsome. He was, a Ford model. So he did really well. My sisters, my mother used to say, your two sisters are prettier than you. That's why they're not working. So there was a really, I mean, you're cute. Your sisters are too beautiful. So I always had that. You get these little messages,
Wow.
We grow up. So I thought, oh, I'm not pretty enough. So I got to be more. So I became more and more and more.
It's interesting because you say that your mom, when she was younger, was a beautiful woman, and throughout probably a beautiful woman. And then she says that and she wanted to be an actress, right? Or she wanted to, and she tells you that your sisters are too pretty to be actresses. Do you kind of in hindsight think maybe she's saying, I could have been an actress too, but I was just too pretty?
Yeah. Later on, I learned a lot about my mother, about what she didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
She told me she was, that old saying that, your silence is so loud, I can't hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, what she didn't say told me why I was doing what I was doing. I mean, when she used to say, smile, look cute, don't share your feelings, she was projecting everything that she thought she was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she taught me how to be like her.
Right.
And in turn, in my teen years, I hated myself so much because I knew what I was going to become.
When you're 12 years old, you're no longer doing after 12. You're no longer doing the Peanut series because your voice ages out of being Sally. And then I'm assuming then the acting roles also start diminishing a bit as well at that time, right?
When I aged out, because kids age out between 12 and 13, there's like this big jump. Either you're older and you play young, or, you're a young kid. And when we went to, there was a crazy story. My mother got involved with a guy in the mob. My mother cheated on my father in California. And my father wanted to save his marriage. So we decided to move to Virginia for 1 year because my dad got a contract with the government. And my mom told Charles Schultz that we were going on sabbatical because my mother thought she was a director.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be back and I'll have my daughter come back and she'll go back to her job. And so when I came back after a year, my voice had changed.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents' marriage fell apart. My dad left. It became a divorce world. And it was kind of an anomaly back then. I think we were a trendsetter about that time. And, when we went to go see Bill Melendez and Charles Schultz, and my mother announced that I was ready to take my job back. And they said to me, I'm so sorry, her voice has changed. We've replaced her.
Mm-hmm.
It devastated me because now I didn't know who I was.
Right.
Because I thought there was a part of me that really believed I was her because no one could see me. I could hide behind this voice. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, if I was being replaced, she was dead, maybe I'm not even here. Like this, it really played something in my head. And I realized that all the money I had made, my mother was spending and giving away to a guy she had met who was a drug dealer. And so I literally made that decision to not do this anymore. Mm-hmm. I was so angry that I exploded at 12 and 13 years old. Good girl turned totally bad. I didn't want to go to school. I couldn't read until I was 11 years old properly because I was just told what to say. You know, I thought I was stupid because my mother would say, you're never going to be as smart as me or pretty as me or as tall as me or any as me. So I was constantly never enough, never enough, never enough. But you couldn't tell because I could smile on cue. How you doing? Great. Everything's wonderful. As I got blisters on my hands and I'm biting my fingernails to the quick, you know. And so when we came back from Virginia and my career was done, I just went on I went into a depression as a kid. I start running away from home. I start not showing up to school. You know, I'm start hitchhiking. I mean, good girl. I'm in Southern California. I'm wearing a bathing suit and I'm hitchhiking to, you know, Arizona. I mean, I looked 12, but it didn't matter. But I didn't care.
Right.
I was like, I didn't care.
When we come back, we're going to learn a little bit more about how Hilary transitioned from happy child Sally to a very unhappy young teenager. We'll be right back. Today's episode of Bearing Scars is sponsored by the Churchill Strategy Group. In today's complex world, your voice needs to be heard, from City Hall to the halls of the White House. Whether you're navigating local regulations, state policy, or federal legislation, Churchill Strategy Group's strategic insight opens doors, builds coalitions, and turns challenges into victories. Visit them online at churchillstrategygroup.com.
Scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Welcome back to Bearing Scars, and today we're with Hilary Momberger Powers, and you remember her from your childhood as Sally. Sally, of course, has still never grown up, but Hilary had to grow up, and at the age of 12, she discovered she was no longer going to be Sally in the Peanuts cartoons, and as an actress, of course, some of her roles had changed. And how did you handle this transition from being a child actress to now just another one of the kids?
It was, you know, I was reminded by my mother now that I was not working. I was just another mouth to feed. That's what my mother would say to me. I was like, oh, okay. Now that I'm not bringing an income in, because I'd become a cash cow for her. You know, it was back in the day, you know, the Coogan law is if you have a TV series, well, the Peanuts specials were periodic. And then I had my commercials and all the little specials and the doll voices and the, you know, the cartoons that I was doing were sporadic. And my mother she would say that, you know, I'm your manager. It's because of me that you're alive, so I should get paid for it. I was like, okay, mommy, you know. And so
the Jackie Coogan law is the law that was passed in order to protect.
Series.
So tell us a little bit about what the Jackie Coogan law was and how it was intended to protect children.
What had ended up happening is a lot of parents, the kids would go become actors and then they would spend all their money. So you were basically trafficked. I mean, I call that's just old term, trafficking term.
Right.
You were kind of your slave to your parents. And so they put in a law that if you were on a TV series, it was kind of like little niches. People would get away with it. They would have to put away so much, 15% or 75% or some percentage. I never saw anything, so the percentage made nothing to me.
Wow.
But you had to set up a trust fund. Well, that's great, but my mother's name was on it, and so was mine.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no trust there whatsoever. So she would keep going in there and funneling it out.
Mm-hmm.
And around this time when I found out that I was no longer going to be Sally, it really put regardless of me kind of not wanting to do it because I wanted to be just a kid. Now I didn't know who I was. My identity was shattered because now I'm not this face. I'm not this character. And I wanted so bad to be loved. And now I felt like I was being thrown away by everybody. Mm-hmm. And so, my brain's not formulated, and I'm so immature that I think, well, if I'm no longer worth anything, I should just destroy myself. Like, there's my thinking. So from there on, I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to die. And I became incredibly angry. But I stuffed it because I can't show my feelings. They're not profitable. I'd already learned that one. I started turning my anger inward. I was no longer worthy of anything. Mm-hmm. So I proceeded like that. And I found drugs and alcohol, and I started stealing cars. I was getting arrested for, robbery. I would steal from Mervyn's and, trying to find out who I was. But I didn't have any guidance. My parents were broken up. I was a product of a divorce. Everybody disappeared. So I kind of disappeared.
How did you find the drugs? What was the path that sent you from, happy kid to saying, oh, this guy can give me some drugs and provide happiness? How did that present itself?
Well, it's kind of like people would say, aren't you on that commercial? Aren't you that? I'm like, oh, no, it's not me. So I would lie about it. I would say it wasn't me because I didn't want to be frowned upon. Like, now I want to be a cool kid. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of different when you're different, My mother got involved with a guy in the 70s. She met at a bar, and he was a chemist. Okay. So what a chemist was, he used to cook speed. And so we would see a lot of drugs come in. There was people smoking pot in my house. So all of a sudden, West Point dad, CIA West Point dad, Northrop, aerospace. And then all of a sudden, this drug dealer with dark rose-colored glasses, and he had bell bottoms and purple clothes. And it was like, oh my God, that's cool. So I drank with my sisters, and I felt a part of. All of a sudden, I started feeling a part of. I felt so separate for so long. I felt different than everybody. But the drugs and alcohol, they call it spirit for a reason. You become somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to become somebody else. I had spent my life playing a character. Now I got to feel it. It was kind of like, wow.
It's amazing that most folks, when you talk to them about how were drugs introduced to you, very few of them say at home, with mom, with mom and with my sisters and with mom's boyfriend. Yeah. And it's listening to you, your dynamic with your mother is fascinating. How was that dynamic with your mom during this time frame when you were starting to turn?
I hated this woman more than anything. She would beat the shit out of us. She'd take the Comet and throw it all over the bathroom. She was total mommy dearest, screaming and yelling, and she'd take our clothes out and throw them in the middle of the room and beat us and then say, go back to sleep. And we'd have to go to school the next day and pretend like nothing happened. So when I found drugs and alcohol, this didn't make me want to get loaded more. I just didn't feel for a minute. Like all of a sudden I forgot everything. I didn't want to remember this stuff, and my mother would be getting loaded with my stepfather, and they started shooting dope. They were junkies, and it was just night and day, overnight, my parents. And I was so ashamed of who I was. I felt like I was white trash. All of a sudden, The horses went away because my mother needed the money. The house, we got lost. The house, the government took the house. The feds came. It was just mayhem constantly. And it was just drama constantly. So I just kept it going. So I'd get loaded and then I decided to slit my wrist. So I'd slit my wrist. It was always some kind of drama because, what was back behind it is I'm not worthy of love and I hate myself so much. I have failed everybody.
When you say you slit your wrist, are you talking a suicide attempt, slit your wrist, or just...
Yeah, it was a suicide attempt when I was 14.
And there was just the one suicide attempt?
No, I had a couple.
Tell me about it. I mean, as much as you're willing to.
I had some, I say God has blessed me tenfold a million times. And I believe that God sends angels. There was this one woman, I was working in a doctor's office. This is fast forward. And I had decided to kill myself. And I took 100 Valium. And literally after I swallowed them, a woman who worked for the suicide prevention clinic happened to drive by my house. She knew me from my doctor's office. She said she had a feeling to come see me. And I answered the door and I told her what I did. And we ended up getting my stomach pumped. I mean, little stuff like that. I have slit my wrist. I had gone into grand mal seizures just hoping that I would die because I didn't understand how to get out of my trauma. Mm-hmm. I thought that was my life. I thought it was all about perform, fail, die. That was my life. That's what I thought it was about.
Do you remember this woman's name who saved your life?
Oh my God. That's sad. I can see her face. She was a Latino woman. I can't remember her name. Her name, I believe, was Stephanie. And I see her. She was just a kind human being that said she had a feeling to come over.
And she was brought into your life.
And I never saw her again. It's like one of those little things. When I left home, I'll give you an idea. So one good girl turns bad. I start running away from home. My mother calls the police, constantly trying to get me arrested. Get rid of her, lock her up. That was her goal. And I used to get picked up for incorrigible. And finally, the cops are like, we can't keep her. We can't keep her in juvenile hall. And so I ended up, she says, well, I don't want her. And she was shipping me off to my father's house. And she hit me and I hit her back. And she said, now I can get rid of her. So I got arrested for assault and battery. And I left my drug at home and I went to juvenile hall.
How old were you?
On 14, going on 15. I turned 15 in juvenile hall. And I remember thinking, finally, I'm away from this house. Thank God I hit her. Thank God. And I thought I would leave my family and everything would be happily ever after. I believe in Disney too. Mm-hmm. And the truth is I brought me with me. I brought all my hurt, my angers, my disappointments, my belief about who I was. And I went to juvenile hall and my mother let me sit there for 6 weeks to teach me a lesson. She was really good about that. She shows up and she says, well, okay, I think you've learned your lesson. I said, I'm never going home to your house again. And they said, No, they said, do you have a family you can go to that will foster you? And I said, I think I do. So I called up a girlfriend of mine and they ended up fostering me. And the reason why the father wanted me is because he was having sex with his daughter and he wanted to have sex with me.
Oh, boy.
I didn't know this. And so I moved into this family. And their house blew up because I became the one who said, I think he's sleeping with the son and the daughter. And I became the bad guy. So now I've blown up another family. That's how my mind thought. I destroyed my mom. She told me I did. Now I destroyed this family. And I ended up running away from home from there. And I lived on the streets. And I lived in Compton in a warehouse. I met a boy. I thought, he's going to save me. Are you my daddy? The boyfriend, the first boyfriend, We're going to live happily ever after. He ended up beating the shit out of me. And
how old were you and how old was he?
He was 19. I was 16. Yeah. We're living in a warehouse in Compton. And I got a job at this warehouse making drawers. It was a furniture factory. We could live there, but we had to leave by 6 a.m. So we would get there after 6 p.m. We get to sleep there was a mattress there. And I sold pots and pans on the on-ramp of the 91 freeway at Atlanta and Artesia. And that's what I did for a living. And people would say, where are you from? And I'd make up this story. I would tell my real name was Naomi, because I was so ashamed that I wasn't who I used to be. Right. And if they knew that I was like this little famous kid and, I made all this money, but it was taken from me. Like I felt like I failed everything. So that's where I started to just self-destruct and destroy myself.
That happened until you were from 13 basically until 21. You're in this spiral, right? Yeah,
just living and, giving my body away. I was promiscuous. I just didn't care. I would be raped. I didn't tell anybody. It was probably my fault. Like everything was my fault. I was so self-centered. Like I couldn't see myself. I thought that the reason why my life was bad is because I was bad.
You blamed yourself for being raped.
Everything. It was, I do take responsibility for part of it. I was inappropriately dressed. I placed myself in a position to be hurt, but I'm not saying the guy, was my fault, but there was part of it. I didn't know how to take care of myself.
It's never your fault when you're raped or attacked. It's never your fault.
No, not 100%. But I could have wore some more appropriate outfits. Like I could have protected myself. That old saying, hurt people. Well, I do things when I'm treated a certain way. I'm going to treat myself the same way.
From 13 to 21, you were in a spiral. When we come back, we're going to learn what happened at 21 that caused Hilary to wake up and say, I want to be a new person. We'll be right back.
July 27th, 1994. The first call to the RAIN National Sexual Assault Hotline.
Hello? I need help. Are you in a safe place to talk?
30 years and nearly 5 million survivors and their loved ones later. RAIN is here for anyone in search of help, justice, community, and a world free from sexual violence.
Scars, scars, enjoy your scars.
Welcome back to Bearing Scars. Today we're talking with Hilary Momberger Powers. You may remember her as Sally, but what you didn't know until we started talking today is what she went through post-Sally into adulthood. But once she turned 21, Hilary decided that spiral had to stop. Talk to us about how you stopped the spiral and became the new Hilary.
Wow, it's so great. I wish that all of a sudden just one thing happened, but right. Life's like, I always say life is like a soup. That you have the main ingredients, family, you have chicken, and then you put all these herbs and spices, and it's got to cook a while. And that's kind of what happened to me. I had left. I was no longer this little childhood star, and there was some women who were at this little nursing college down the road from where I was living in this warehouse. There was a school on Atlantic Boulevard, and I saw these women coming out in nursing outfits, and I thought, maybe I should be a nurse. Maybe I can save somebody and then they'll save me. So I signed up for this college to be an LVN, a licensed vocational nurse and a phlebotomist. I said, I'm going to be a nurse. So I go through this college and I end up, the boyfriend and I break up because he beats me. And I'm like, I don't want to get hit anymore. So I leave him and I'm working at this doctor's office and I'm passing out drugs at this doctor's office. I'm a back office nurse and I'm selling speed out the back door because it was a weight control clinic. And I'm thinking, I'm no different than my stepfather. He's selling speed to people on the streets. I'm calling him a scumbag, but I'm a scumbag because I'm doing the same thing. Like I start seeing who I really have become and I hate myself. myself even more. I'm bulimic. I don't keep food in me. I'm throwing up. I'm in and out of the hospital. I can't stand who I am, but I don't know how to change. So I go and I do an 8-ball. I'm doing a bunch of drugs and I take a bunch of downers. And I'm 21 years old and I think should just kill myself. I can't figure out how to get out of here. This is where I'm trying to get out of my head.
Right, yeah.
I don't shut my mind up. All my mind is telling me I'm not enough. I hate you. You should kill yourself. God hates you. You're a loser. Like, that's my mantra all day long. But if you say, how am I doing? I go, I'm great. How are you?
Right.
I'm dying inside. And I sit on this fire escape in Venice and I go into a grand mal seizure. Now, I'd overdosed a couple times. I had slit my wrist. I was in control. But now I go into a grand mal seizure and I realize I might die. And I look up and I said, if you're here, please don't let me die. I don't think I want to die. And they stopped. And I'd love to say, and then I was ever after. But that was the beginning of my awakening. I needed some kind of spiritual awakening for me to realize that I'm not my body. I'm not what I do. I'm not my history. I'm not a character. I'm a human being in this existence that's trying to be kind and loving and find the light. I had no idea. So I go into this grand mal seizure and I ask God to stop it, and it stops. That's when I said, I think I need to change. And it brought me into AA. I ended up meeting a guy on the corner in Venice. I had just overdosed. And I meet him 3 days later, and he says to me, hey, Hilary, I don't drink anymore. And I go, and he says, you should come to an AA meeting. I think you're an alcoholic. And I ended up coming to my first AA meeting, and my life started opening up. I was exposed to a world where other people didn't want to hurt themselves, that other people wanted to be happy, that other people were tired of being somebody else to be loved. And I got exposed to this whole new world and a family that I never had.
And they were loving you for you. They were helping you. They weren't using you.
They didn't care what I did. They didn't care what I had done to myself. They didn't care what I did for a living. They didn't care. They just wanted to help me care about they used to say, we're going to love you until you love yourself. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to love myself. I hate myself. I'm so not worthy of love.
Yeah.
And, lo and behold, all these years later, I help other women love themselves. And all, everything that I was given, now I get to give back in return. Wow. I'm so rich. Like, that's who I want to be remembered by.
At this time frame, you're 21, 22, 23, you're recovering. Things are getting brighter. It's not perfect, but things are getting brighter. And you get back into the business.
I started doing some more auditions, but I got Me Too'd a couple times, whatever. Mm-hmm. Shit happens. And so I thought I'm too vulnerable to be an actor. Like, I realized I had a lot of scars. Mm-hmm. I felt really raw. So my mentor said to me, it's time to go back to high school. And so here I am, 27 years old. I got to go back to high school now. So I went back and I got my diploma, which was really humiliating and incredible at the same time, because I realized that it doesn't matter how old you are to better yourself. So I ended up going to UCLA. I said to my mentor, I said, I don't want to be an actor, but I want to go back into the film because it's home to me.
Yeah.
I grew up on a set as a kid.
Where you were happiest.
Yeah. I mean, I liked where people were creative. And so I take this job. I go to UCLA. I want to use my brain. That's what I said. I want to use this brain that someone said I had. So I went to UCLA and I learned how to be a script supervisor. And I felt like I was being acknowledged for a brain that I never thought I had. And all of a sudden I started doing things. So I started doing esteemable acts and I started gaining self-esteem. I started showing up on time. I started realizing people like seeing me. So through stabilizing myself with sobriety and no longer drinking and sleeping and, and taking care of myself, I started feeling safe. And as a result of feeling safe, I was able to get back into my community, which I felt at home at, which was the film industry. And then from there, I started getting self-worth and self-esteem. I became productive.
And you got back in front of the camera, too.
I did.
What are some of the shows that we may have seen you on and some of the roles that you played?
Well, I was so afraid of getting back in front of the camera because I really thought I was ugly and I'm fat and not enough. And, a couple times someone had said to me, hey, you have a great face. You should get back in. And I was like, no, I'm not pretty enough. Like this low self-worth, it was just so embedded in me. Mm-hmm. It was like 15 years ago. And the director said, hey, listen, I'm doing this whole beauty ad about nutrition. And I was like, oh, you want me to work on it? And he goes, no, I'd like you to be in it. And I thought, oh my God.
How affirming was that?
It was, wow, thank you. So from there, I ended up getting another agent. And since then, I just recently did a Heinz ketchup commercial, and a Kohler commercial. And I do a lot of print stuff. I recently did a couple movies. Brittany Lost Her Phone, which is a really funny sci-fi. I'm in another movie coming out, and I worked on Hallmark movies, and I've done a lot of commercials and print jobs. It's not who I am. It's just something I do. Mm-hmm. The difference is I no longer think that's going to make me somebody. I know everything starts from the inside. And so I feel enough today that I don't need to prove to the world that I'm somebody, which is a completely different human being that I was. When I was a kid, I thought I needed to prove that I'm worthy of love. And now I feel worthy of love because of what I contribute from the inside, not the outside.
How has your mental health been? Because I know that you talked about how you felt so out of it. How's your mental health been the past several years?
Oh, I've never been so happy. Now I can just be a worker among worker. I could just be another human being in the day I'm in, and how can I add to your life? Yeah. Totally different person.
That's an amazing transformation from the 17-year-old you and the 16-year-old you. Let's say you're in an elevator. You're on the 6th floor and you're going down, and in walks a 16-year-old who's in the same situation you were in. You have from the 6th floor to the lobby to convince her to change her life. What sort of advice would you give her?
God, that just gave me a chill because I'm so blessed. Mm-hmm. And I would say to her, you are not who you think you are. You're so much bigger, sweetheart. Here's my number. Like, I'm the woman that says, allow me to introduce yourself to yourself. Mm. Let me introduce you to you. Because what you think you are is not who you are. You're perfect. Right here, right now, you're amazing. And I love being a cheerleader to a stranger. Because the people that help me the most, I've never seen again. Because they just come in my life. They sprinkle a little, their fairy dust. I call that the God shot. And that leads me to my next indicated step. So I want to be that person for that stranger. I want to help crack their egg so they could go after that light. What can I say to help you feel better?
And when we come back, we're going to learn how Hilary is helping others feel better in their lives today. We'll be right back.
Tell me something good.
On the next, Bearing Scars. As a kid growing up in Worcester, Mass. in the 1970s, John Carter knew he'd end up following his father's footsteps into the family business.
Father was in the mafia. He was the boss.
Even in school, he was on his way.
When I was 10 years old, I ran my neighborhood.
he already had a client base.
My biggest customer was my history teacher.
But like you've seen in the movies and on TV, the world he entered is a tough one. Unlike in the movies, the violence, the pain, and the impact is real.
This man owed me money for gambling. Instead of paying me, he decided that he would just try to eliminate his problem. Well, I was shot in the back of the head.
Predictably, John ended up in prison. He weighed 330 pounds, was in a wheelchair, and still had 4 bullet fragments in his skull.
Prison saved my life.
His new family in prison helped John find a new life and redemption.
I had to go through what I went through to get to where I am now.
Tune into this episode of Bearing Scars to discover John's shocking new life and how he's helping others to transform theirs. Bearing Scars is available at all major podcast platforms and at bearingscars.com.
10 cops come barreling through my door with guns drawn. I smiled. I said, "It's over. Thank goodness."
Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
We are back with Hilary Momberger Powers. We have gone on a journey with her. From a childhood actress, which had the shining lights of Hollywood, and everyone looked at her with just esteem, to what her looking at herself with a little bit less esteem than we all looked at her, and how then she overcame. And now what she wants to do is to help you overcome. Hilary, what are you doing now?
What am I doing now? I help women reclaim their life and find out that they are not what they've done. I don't care if you've sold your body, you've stolen, that's not who you are. You are leading with your wound. That's who you believed you were. So I help women find out that they can no longer lead with their wounds and they can have these happy, purposeful lives.
You're doing it as a keynote speaker as well as one-on-one with folks. And how can people get a hold of you?
Well, if you would like to get a hold of me, I'm at HilaryMombergerPowers.com. That's my website. I have a few books I've written. I have my memoirs coming out. Good Grief, Hollywood Ate My Childhood. I've written a few children's books. I've got a movie at the Cannes Film Festival right now, a script I wrote. I just love creating, and I'm not doing it to get anything. I'm doing it to share. You know, I'd work with some of these actors like Patrick Dempsey when we were working on Grey's Anatomy. I go, today's the best day ever. And Will Ferrell used to scream my name, Momberger, because we'd laugh. We'd learn how to be happy in the day we're in.
Now, you mentioned your biography. What's the progress of that, and how's it going? When can we get to read it?
You're awesome. I'm actually doing a book proposal right now, looking for publishers, for agents. And resilience is the key. We're all really, really, really strong. We just got to find our strength. And my book is really based on, having people in my life that have, encouraged me to keep going even when I didn't want to keep going.
Every single episode, we ask our guests what their 3 resilience routines are. These are things that when times are down, you look to, you do. Is it a hobby? Is it music? Is it working out? Is it reading? Is it your faith? What are your 3 resilience routines, Hilary?
Gosh, what am I thought? Well, when I get really depressed, and I still get it because I still have that mind that goes back to its old ideas in a second. I do things like I just go, God, 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 God. That's my favorite saying because I'm not me. It's not me. I kind of changed my frequency. I've learned how to practice make-believe. Like I do a lot of writing. I'll write down everything that I'm grateful for. And I'll write down the way I'd like my life to look like.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Not what I've accomplished, but look at where I came from. I don't need to be the star. I just want to be a glimmer. Everybody's got a bunch of glimmers. I want you to be the star of your own life. I want you to look in the mirror and say, I'm a good woman, or I'm a good man, I've done a good job. You know, no matter where you've been or what you've done, you can have a new experience right now.
Stick around for the feature we call Scar Tissue.
Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought all the people that I knew who didn't drink were self-righteous people, holier than thou. So it never occurred to me that Alcoholics Anonymous was filled with people who had drank like I did, and now were the same people that I used to drink with, the same people that I liked, only now they weren't drinking. They were people just like me who had been drinking for a long time and found out that it didn't work for them anymore.
Visit AA.org for more information and download the Meeting Guide app to find a meeting near you.
Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
And now, Scar Tissue. What I found so fascinating about listening to Hilary tell her story is how she kept rewinding back to her childhood and her family. Throughout her interview, I listened to a woman who was searching for that ideal family her entire life. And Hilary's facade on camera and on the microphone as Sally is somebody who was ideal. But just like so many Hollywood scripts, her life took a real turn for the worse. And I want to point one thing out, and we talked about it during our discussion with Hilary. If you're a victim of rape or sexual assault, it is never your fault. Yet Hilary, with the weight of the world on her shoulders, somehow thought her rape was her fault. It was not her fault. Throughout our discussion, Hilary mentioned wanting to feel safe. For Hilary, feeling safe is being in the background and being with her family in the film industry. And now, Hilary is what's called a script supervisor, which is ironically the person who ensures that everything on set with her family is in place. And this fall, when Hilary once again welcomes us to the holiday season as Sally, we can sit back a little and smile, knowing that she survived, she thrived, even though she's bearing scars.